What? Florida's fake, like birds. The lie the government tells you.
What, where, why? Let's look at how you killed that guy. It's knife to meet you. Who, what, where, why? Let's look at how you did that crime. It's knife to meet you.
All right.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn.
Yeah.
Which I feel like it's going to be difficult to follow that shit up because, oh boy.
This will be like a nice, like refreshing palate cleanser because
yeah,
crazy and evil and copra.
And now for something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Like now for a like not really a positive one because they still are a murderer, but like a better one, I think.
Yeah.
Arguably.
Well, I'm going to argue that because all right, my favorite serial killer is Aileen Wuornos. And I actually did my term paper on her in my undergrad when I studied with a psychopathologist for a semester, which, by the way, was like one of the coolest semesters of my life. And also the semester where I thought maybe I shouldn't join the FBI. Which I ultimately decided not to do, not because of the reasons that I was thinking of in grad school, which were that it would be very difficult to like have a family and have things that were wholesome and loving and good in my life, and then have to go to prisons and work with serial killers and the most horrible people in the world, and have to go to crime scenes where the most horrific things ever have happened.
So because is a psychopathologist like the person that goes and interviews them or whatever? Like
he had worked with some of the people in the behavioral analysis unit. He was not part of the FBI, but he was a psychologist who studied, specifically his specialty was psychopathy. And so we spent a semester studying psychopathy. We read a lot of case studies. That's where we learned to do Hare Psychopathy Checklist Revised. And that's where a lot of my education and background comes from that semester, which of course I graduated from my undergrad in 2011. So, that's a good, almost a decade ago that I'm referencing this information from. And if I recall, I don't think I got an A in that course, but that wasn't because I wasn't interested in the subject matter. It was because I was also very ill at the time. So there's a good possibility that I probably missed a lot of class. But I have done quite a bit of research on Aileen Wuornos, specifically because I did write my term paper on her. And you know how I love a good term paper. Yeah. So, Eileen Carol Pittman was born in Troy, Michigan on February 29th, 1956. Her mother's name was Diane, and she married Eileen's father when she was 14 years old, and then gave birth to Aileen when she was 15 years old.
Oh, how old was the father?
Yeah.
How old was the father? Were they the same age? Or
the father was 16, she was 14. Okay. That's when they got married. And then a year later, she had Aileen. And then, so Aileen was born February 29th of 1956. And then I guess her older brother was born on March 14th of 1955. So they are 1 year apart. So she gave birth and then boom, immediately got pregnant again with Aileen.
Oh, wow.
And then after less than 2 years of marriage and 2 months before Aileen was due, so before Aileen was even born, Diane filed for divorce.
Okay.
So Leah never actually met her father. She goes by Lee. So I call her Lee. She never met her father. He was incarcerated at the time of her birth, and they were going through a divorce anyway. But it's important to mention her father because he was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia and was later convicted of sex crimes against children, and eventually committed suicide by hanging while he was still in prison.
Ugh.
Yeah, this is we're gonna set the tone real early. Lee never really had a chance. Like, it was just so her father Leo was arrested and convicted of the rape and attempted murder of a 7-year-old girl when Wuornos was born. Yeah.
And they told her that? That's the thing, like the mom told
I don't
the
know what
kids
she
that?
knew. I don't know what she was aware of, but I just wanted you to know that
It was
because
in the
schizophrenia
DNA,
is
basically.
hereditary. Yeah, schizophrenia is very hereditary, and it especially kicks in your late 20s.
So does she have schizophrenia too?
Yes.
Oh, that wasn't in the monster movie. That wasn't in that movie.
We're gonna get to it. We're gonna
Okay.
get to it. Okay. So so he hanged himself in 1969 when she was still very, very young. And when Lee was around 4 years old, her brother Keith was 5, Diane just like took off. She just pieced out and dumped her 2 children with her parents, so her Lee's grandparents. So the grandparents adopted them. But her grandfather was a piece of fucking work. She later said that her grandfather had beaten and sexually assaulted her regularly, and that he was an alcoholic. And by the time she was 11 years old, she had already learned that she could trade sex for favors like food, drugs, cigarettes, and would even do this at school. And she also had a sexual relationship with her older brother Keith at a very early age.
Oh,
so it was obvious that she was being hugely sexually abused. But from what I can tell, I think her relationship with Keith, even though it was sexual from an early age, was one of the only positive sexual relationships that she had. She loved Keith to pieces. The only constant in her life. He was the only one who was ever there for her, and I don't believe that he ever hurt her.
So the mom just like dumped her with the grandparents, fucked off somewhere. Did the mom ever try to get them back, or like?
No. No, that's the end of Diane being part of this story at all.
That's awful.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it makes sense when you look at the fact that she married Leo, a child rapist and schizophrenic and like all this shit, that it kind of makes, for me, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, makes it more believable to me that her grandfather was probably a pedophile who sexually molested both Diane and Eileen.
That would make sense because they don't just like they don't start out of nowhere. You know?
And you wouldn't start prostituting yourself out of fucking nowhere. You have to learn, those are learned behaviors.
Yeah.
So to be a prostitute by 11 years old, there's something going on there.
Yeah.
And she also said that before beating her, he would force her to strip out of her clothes. And then when she was 14 years old, a friend of her grandfather's raped her, and she got pregnant by that rape. And she actually changed her story on that situation a number of times, which happens with a victim of trauma, especially someone who was a victim of trauma at such an early age. Like, I get it, that she would change the person who raped her, and then say she wasn't raped, and then say she was, but pretty consistently the story is that it was an accomplice of her grandfather. But personally, I think it could have easily have been her grandfather who got her pregnant.
Did she keep it, or
no? She ended up having a baby boy. She had him at a home for unwed mothers in March 23rd of 1971, which is actually very close to her brother's birthday. And then the child was placed for adoption.
Oh, wow. Do we know like what happened to him, or?
No, that's all the information that I have about that. All I know is that after that, she dropped out of school. And at about that same time, her grandmother ended up having liver failure, and she died of liver failure. So that suggests to me that her grandmother was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So basically, she got pregnant at 14, and by the time she was 15, her grandfather threw her out of the house, and she and her brother ended up becoming wards of the state. Wards of the court, excuse me. So after they were kicked out of the house, Wuornos started living in the woods and worked as a prostitute to support herself, because she had just no other way of supporting herself. That's what she had learned really early on, and also what her grandfather told her, like that's what she was good for, and all this horrible shit.
So she basically had no chance from a young age. Like that's
she was completely failed as a child. She had no chance, both in terms of what was happening to her, but also in terms of and her bodily autonomy, which is completely and totally violated from a very early age, consistently. So there's obviously some very complex post-traumatic stress disorder there, but also her hereditary predisposition for schizophrenia and mental illness and alcoholism.
So I'm assuming all of that comes into play later. Like, so that monster movie only covers like a little bit of her life. Like I had thought that I knew about Aileen Wuornos because I've seen that and like I have read a little bit about it, but like I didn't know that she was schizophrenic or like incesting with her brother or like.
No, there's a lot to know about Lee Wuornos, and there are parts of her that I have seen in interviews with other people and in stories that she's told and in accounts that I've read about where I really genuinely think that given a chance that if things had just been different, that she would have been different.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
I really believe that. I really do. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I love Lee Wuornos. There are more, and I'll get to them as we reach those parts of the story. But I do want to say that, you know, because the embodiment of our cultural understanding and our like our cultural, like the image that we have in our mind of what a serial killer is usually a sexual predator. So like the idea of a female sexual predator serial killer is just like unheard of. There's such a clear distinction between women acting alone or in a partnership with serial killers. And you know, when you talk about female serial killers, a lot of the time in a team and they're having like a shared psychotic disorder, like for example Karla Homolka, which we discussed in episode 2, or they've got Stockholm syndrome or post-traumatic stress disorder, battered woman syndrome.
It is really rare to find one that's like a woman working
acting
only
of her own cognizance. And even when you do find a female serial killer acting of her own acting on her own volition, usually they don't kill in the most violent way ever. They will use poison or other surreptitious methods of killing, or they'll get men to kill for them, or you know, just the level of violence is usually not so overt, and particularly gun violence is just so rare. So, I mean, when you look at the statistical subset of serial killers that are female, then you look at the statistical subset of female serial killers who act alone. Then you look at the subset of female serial killers who act alone, use a weapon to commit their murders. Like, it's just so astronomically, statistically anomalous. It's so she's such a statistical outlier in so many ways. And when you look at her case study, just there are so many interesting points. And I just wanted to point that out just when we're talking about why I'm so fascinated by Aileen. So, okay, let's skip back to her next major life event is when she's 18 in May of 1974, which is exactly 100 years after Albert Fish was
coincidence
orphanage. Yeah,
that's awful.
She was arrested in Jefferson County, Colorado for a DUI for disorderly conduct and for firing a .22 pistol from a vehicle. So basically, she skipped out on court. I really wanted to know more about what the fuck happened there. Like I strongly wanted to know about that, but it wasn't in my book. And the citing for that fact on most of the sources that I found online was from a book, and I don't have access to that book.
Okay.
As much as I find like things online that are cited from published work, I want to buy them all and immediately like read whatever I can, but I don't have the money for that. So I guess what I'm saying is y'all should donate to us or join our Patreon or whatever so that I can buy books about serial killers and read them to you.
Hell yeah.
So in 1976, I think as a way of avoiding being arrested for failure to appear, she hitchhiked to Florida.
Oh, everything happens in Florida.
I know. So this is officially now a Florida woman story, which is another one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot
Wasn't
of
she
locations
blonde,
in this
too?
story that I've been to, and so it just keeps getting better from here. Okay, so in 1976, she gets to Florida and she meets Louis Gratz Fell, a 69-year-old yacht club president.
Oh.
Yes. Yes, 69 years old, president of a yacht club. And they get married.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
So, like,
I have to stop here and just say that I think this, like, marrying an old dude, a wealthy old dude, I feel like this has got to be a reflection of her early sexual relationship with her grandfather. That's just my bro-analysis.
I mean, yeah, but, like, why would she go and, like, murder people? She probably could have just waited till old homie died, right? Just, like, got the money.
Well.
Oh.
Well. Okay, so they got married real quick, and they announced their wedding in the society pages of the paper. And things just did not go well from the very beginning. She constantly used to, first of all, she was a very heavy drinker. She had very bad alcoholism. And she was extremely aggressive. I'm sure she had antisocial personality disorder because she would constantly be getting in bar fights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she was sent to prison for assault, and she also allegedly assaulted her 9-year-old yacht club husband with his own walking cane.
What?
Yeah, and he filed for a restraining order against her.
Okay, so she's not getting any money in that will. Oh.
Yeah.
Aileen, why did you do that?
So, yeah, and that apparently happened within weeks of the marriage.
Oh, wow. Not even waiting.
Yep.
So she's like an
apparently
18-year-old
things just went-
alcoholic who marries a 69-year-old dude, and she beats him with his own cane.
She's an 18-year-old hitchhiking sex worker, alcoholic, bar fighter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's a bar brawl. She just loves to get in fights, and she's on the run from a DUI where she fired a fucking pistol out of a moving car, okay, and then ditched court.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's true.
Like, just as like let's pause and just take a picture of her life at this moment in time. In 1974, Lee was she was in it. She was in it.
Yeah. This isn't really the life path of someone who seems like they expect like they're gonna live for very long.
No, she definitely did not have realistic long-term goals. She had no idea how to survive on her own. She was utterly alone in the world, and I think she felt like, I have to imagine that she felt like she had no control for anything in her life, including her own body and her own decisions.
At that point, yeah, like maybe violence was like her claiming.
You have to be so angry. I mean, being consistently molested results in anger, unmitigated, just constantly escalating anger, because you're being abused and there's nothing you can do about it. And the abuse is continuing. It's self-perpetuating because it's the only thing she knows how to do. She's been taught that's the only thing she's good for. And so that's how she's surviving. That's her survival mechanism. And so it's being perpetuated. So you just have to, I feel so much for Aileen Wuornos. Okay.
Yeah, like that's just like sad at that point.
I know people are going to get mad that I'm like romanticizing her or whatever. Like I'm not defending any of her shit. I just...
Like if her life had gone differently, she might not have been a murderer.
She was so
like,
angry and she had no control over her actions. She was incredibly impulsive, and she was just so mad. She was, when you're young and you're along with your own identity and your own sense of self, and you hate yourself because you haven't learned to love yourself yet, and you haven't learned to accept yet, and you don't even know who you are yet, and you're fighting against that. You're fighting all these people and outside of school because you're really fighting yourself. I feel like that was what Aileen was going through. She was 18. She was fighting herself. It's like what you go through during, your junior or senior year when you're getting over childhood trauma, your shit, That's just how I see her. So, Lewis filed for a restraining order and it was granted. So she goes back to Michigan. But then by July of 1976, the following year, she was arrested again for assault because she threw a cue ball at the head of a bartender.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And those are heavy. So I'm bad at pool, and I've definitely shot a ball off of a table before, and I'm really lucky that I didn't break glass or anything. Those are...
I mean, it doesn't say whether or not she actually hit him, but she was charged with assault and disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
And she was arrested. And then that was July 14th of 1976. And then 3 days later, on July 17th of 1976, brother Keith died of esophageal cancer.
Oh, that's not good. The one person that she loved in her life, that was
the only
stable.
person that she actually had an emotional connection to died suddenly.
Yeah, that's not good.
And she received $10,000 from his life insurance.
Oh, wow.
And then on July 21st, so later that same fucking month, Wuornos and Fell had their marriage annulled after only 9 weeks. So, yeah, basically from then on, she was constantly in trouble with the law for a variety of crimes, including grand theft auto, obstruction of justice, resisting arrest, firearms possession, forgery, robbery, all kinds of shit. She was arrested in 1981 in Edgewater, Florida for the armed robbery of a convenience store where she stole $35 and 2 packs of cigarettes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I forgot to say that in August of 1976, she was given a $105 fine for drunk driving. And then she used the money inherited from her brother to pay the fine and spent the rest of it within 2 months. So she got $10,000, 105 of it went to the drunk driving fine. And then the rest she spent within 2 months buying luxuries, including a new car, which she wrecked shortly thereafter.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, why would she be robbing stores? She's got 10 grand in the bank, but that makes sense.
So she blew through the money in 2 months, and then in 81 was arrested in Edgewater for armed robbery. So, okay. Everyone in Florida's favorite serial killer is Ted Bundy because they're like, oh, Florida serial killer. No, Lee Wuornos is the Florida serial killer, okay?
Yeah.
She was better in so many ways, okay?
She didn't have a unibrow, so she's already winning there.
She was, yeah. And I mean, obviously schizophrenia does a fucking number on you, honestly. It's worse than meth. And
if you're not medicated, then that's something that can fuck you up.
Of course she wasn't medicated, girl. What?
Yeah.
No. And then also heavy alcohol abuse from a very early age does a number on you. But if you look at pictures of her as a child, there's one in particular that's a portrait of her as a little girl, and she's got golden hair and this really endearing smile, and you just think, oh my God, how many ways did society...
Yeah.
That's what I think anyway. I'm sure everyone's sitting here going, oh my God, Zoe, what are you doing? But okay.
I mean, she has a lot of stuff stacked against her, and there are... Yeah.
Absolutely. So she was sentenced to prison May 4th, 1982, and then was released in June of 1983. And then May of 1984, she was arrested again for attempting to pass forged checks at a bank in Key West. And then in 1985, she was named as a suspect in the theft of a revolver and ammunition in Pasco County. And then in 1986, she was arrested in Miami and charged with car theft, resisting arrest, obstruction of justice, and for providing identification bearing her aunt's name.
Oh, wow.
And Miami police officers found a .38 caliber revolver and a box of ammunition in the stolen car. And then in 1986, Volusia County deputy sheriffs detained her for questioning after a male companion accused her of pulling a gun in his car and demanding $200. This, I think, is our first
attempt.
No, I think it's just our first seeing her escalate, her first escalation.
Oh, okay.
And she was found to be carrying spare ammunition, and police discovered a .22 pistol in the passenger seat she had occupied. So, okay, at this time, in 1986, she met a hotel named Tyra Moore, or Tyria. Her name is spelled Tyria, and she calls her Tyra, so I think it's Tyra. Anyway, she met her at a gay bar in Daytona, and they moved in together. They started like an immediate romantic relationship, and
that's like the girlfriend that was like the girlfriend, right?
Yeah, that was her.
Okay.
Yeah, that Christina Ricci portrayed.
Yeah.
And Wuornos supported them with her earnings as a prostitute, although Tyra claims that she did not know how Wuornos was coming up with this money. And she was like, if I knew Lee was doing this, I would have stopped her. And then in 1987, Daytona police detained Lee and Moore at a bar for questioning regarding an incident in which they were accused of assault and battery with a beer bottle.
Oh, wow. Like a tag team situation?
Apparently. And then in March of 88, Wuornos accused a Daytona Beach bus driver of assault. She claimed that he pushed her off of the bus following a confrontation, which I believe totally that. I think she probably started a fight and this guy pushed her off the bus and she called the cops on him. Yeah. And then Moore was listed as a witness to the incident. Just a lot of accusations of assault, and Moore often acting as a witness in Wuornos' defense, which is ironic because years later, Tyra Moore once again be a witness in a case against Wuornos, but actually she was a witness for the prosecution. And up until her execution, Aileen Wuornos claimed to still be in love. And she even said that she forgave her. And just things she says about Tyra Moore touched my heart. And yeah. Okay. So let's talk about murder, because Aileen Wuornos killed 7 men within a period of 12 months. So her first victim was Richard Mallory, aged 51. He was shot and killed. He was, by the way, a convicted fucking rapist, this is one of my number one reasons why I believe Aileen when she says that she killed him out of self-defense when he tried to rape her, even though she then retracted that statement. But I think that she was just kind of out of her mind by the time she was on trial. And I think that no one believed her anyway. In fact, I was watching a lot of interviews with Aileen Wuornos when she was in prison, and the one reporter that did these with her, he would keep saying, you killed those men in cold blood, you shot this man in cold blood. And that's just what he said to her over and over again. And she'd call him and be like, I need to tell you something, and I need, and he'd be like, he would contradict everything she said. He would argue with her, he would accuse her, he would make out her crimes.
And that's
to be
a
like
reporter
so
doing that?
Yes.
Aren't you supposed to be like kind of impartial if you're a reporter? Like,
oh, you know what? There are so many things supposed to be in this fucking story of Aileen life. It makes me so angry. So, Richard Mallory, convicted rapist, age 51. He was an electronics store owner in Clearwater. She said she killed him in self-defense. I believe her. 2 days later, his Volusia County sheriff deputy found Mallory's abandoned vehicle, and then on December 13th, his body was found several miles away in a wooded area. He'd been shot several times, but his cause of death was 2 bullets in the left lung. And it was on this murder that actually Wuornos was initially condemned to death.
So they eventually when they caught her, even though it was like the first one. Yeah.
Her second victim was David Spears, age 43, a construction worker in Winter Garden. On June 1st of 1990, his naked body was found beside the highway in Citrus County, Florida. Wuornos had shot him 6 times. Her next victim, Charles Carskaddon, aged 40, was killed May 31st of 1990. He was a part-time rodeo worker. That's new. June 6th, 1990, which is literally the next month, his body was found in Pasco County. He had been shot 8 times with a .20 caliber weapon.
So here's the thing that kind of is my question. Like, was she a good shot?
Wait a minute. There's a discrepancy here. Wikipedia says 8 times, and this book says 9 times. So he was shot 8 to 9 times. Sorry, continue.
Was she a good shot with guns, or was she?
I have no idea.
So here's the thing. Like, if you are shooting at someone and they go down, keep shooting at them.
Well, she shot them almost all at point blank range.
Okay, yeah. So like, this is kind of. It seems like yes, it might have been
overkill.
Yeah, there's self-defense, and then there's.
But you also have to come into the idea that she was robbing these men. And that she was all alone, and she was a hitchhiking sex worker. And these men were probably like, "Why should I have to pay you for something I could just take?" And
exactly, I could totally see her having to defend herself shooting. If she's sitting there.
Well, she's also got some seriously severe complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And when your adrenaline is like cranked like that, I'm sure that in any situation where she realized she was going to have to kill this dude, that she and her anger issues, all this stuff combined is like the perfect fucking storm for a kill. She probably just didn't feel safe. And I also think maybe even if they didn't want to rape her, they might have caught her stealing from them.
Yeah, that would definitely do it. And I mean, like, people get crazy when you mess with their money. So like, I could definitely see that.
Absolutely. And there are so many people who objectify sex workers and feel like, that like they're entitled. Less than human. Yeah. They feel entitled to them. And like, really this person who I don't even consider to be a person is stealing from me, like just the indignation there. I could see that. Obviously this is all speculation, but that's where I'm going with it in my mind. That's what I see and what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So, okay. Charles Carskaddon shot 9 times, or 8 times, who knows. Body was found in Pasco County. Then Peter Sims went missing in June of 1990. His car was later found on July 4th in Orange Springs. Witnesses actually seen Wuornos and Tyra Moore abandon the car, and a palm print belonging to Wuornos was found on the door handle, but the body of Peter Sims has never been found. He was age 65. He was a retired merchant seaman who devoted much of his time to a Christian outreach ministry. And in 1990, he left Jupiter, Florida for Arkansas, and then his car was found in Orange Springs.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
It's like tripping me out because like I know where all these places are.
I know. So her next victim was Troy Boris, aged 50, was a sausage salesman from Ocala. So he was reported missing on July 31st of 1990. His body was found in the woods behind State Road 19 in Marion County on August 4th. So if you're paying attention to the dates here, she killed Richard Mallory November 30th. Then December 13th, his body was found. So there's kind of a gap from November, late 1989, and then summer of 1990, things really start to start ranking up.
Ramp back up.
Yeah. Because June 1st, they found David Spears' body. And then they found on May 31st, Charles Carskaddon. And then Seams went missing in June of 1990. So later that month. And then Troy Burris was reported missing July 31st, 1990. And then his body was found August 4th. Then September 11th, Charles, known as Dick Humphreys, was shot 6 times in the torso and head, and his body was discovered the next day in Marion County, and his car was later located in Suwannee County. So Dick Humphreys was age 56. He was a retired U.S. Air Force major and a former state child abuse investigator and chief of police.
Oh.
That one really throws me for a loop.
Yeah, so like what happened
Because
with that one?
why is he picking up a hitchhiking sex worker?
I mean,
Why is he starting a fight with this woman? What is going on?
so he
And
started the
how is she going to get the
altercation?
better of him? How, I don't know. I have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But I do believe that she was robbing and killing these men at first out of self-defense, and then just realized, this is the best way to get the money.
Yeah.
And I really think that at that point, she just was like, you know what? Men are really just there to hurt her. And that had been her experience her entire life. She had no control over anything. And I think when she killed Richard Mallory, my theory is, and of course, my professional, purely speculative theory, is that she felt empowered for the first time in her life. She felt she had a sense of control. She felt like she had a kill switch. Literally
like,
a
that
kill
makes
switch.
sense because like also she could see it as like getting revenge on all the person she was hurting at that time.
Absolutely. And all the people who had hurt her throughout her life.
Yeah.
Especially given, look at the ages of these men. Age 51, age 40, age 65, age 50, age 56, and age 62.
She's picking the older ones. Yeah, that's
She was, I think, vicariously killing her grandfather in all of these kills.
Probably. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, for her trial, did they ever like bring her past up? No.
Not that I'm aware of. But again, I don't have trial transcripts. I haven't seen video of the trial. So Dick Humphreys was shot 6 times in the torso and head. Body was discovered Marion County, car in Suwannee County. And then the last known victim of Wuornos was Walter Gino Antonia, age 62, trucker, security guard, and police reservist. He was shot and killed on November 1st, and his body was almost nude when it was found by a logging road in Dixie County. And then police found his car 5 days later in Brevard County. So, almost exclusively, with the exception of Richard Mallory, all of these murders occurred in the year 1990, pretty much in the summer, all the up to mid-November 1990.
And then when was she arrested? The same year?
So after Wuornos and Moore dumped Seams's car and the witnesses provided their descriptions and names to the police, there was a media campaign to try and find them. So property belonging to the victims was found in pawn shops, and they were able to lift fingerprints off of the items, plus there was the palm print on Seam's car.
Okay.
And because Wuornos had been arrested before, her fingerprints were on file, so they made that match pretty immediately. So it wasn't long to find her, plus they had everyone out looking for her. And she was all over the TV. And of course, she's a heavy alcoholic. I'm sure she went into a bar. It's like, hey,
yeah.
a bar. So police arrested her on January 9th of 1991 on an outstanding warrant, and then the following day they found Tyra Moore, and she agreed to get a confession out of Wuornos in exchange for immunity. And she returned to Florida.
Like, why would immunity from what? Like, she didn't kill anyone, did she?
No, but
just
given
like
that she helped dispose of Seams's car, I mean, she claims not
okay.
going on. She claims not to have known, but I'm telling you, Tyra Moore knew.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're helping dispose of a car, you would probably ask why. Like, true.
100%. 100%. Oh yeah, that's right. She was arrested in a bar. She was arrested in the Last Resort bar in Volusia County. That was her favorite bar. Yeah,
it's called the Last Resort.
Yeah,
that's awful.
And that was her bar.
Oh wow!
If you watch any documentary about Aileen Wuornos, everyone they interview at that bar. All the people who knew her best were at that bar. So she was arrested on an outstanding warrant at the Last Resort, which is a biker bar in Volusia County. And then they found Tyra Moore in Scranton, Pennsylvania the next day. And she returned with police to Florida. They put her up in a motel. And under police guidance, she made a number of telephone calls to Lee, pleading for help in clearing her name. And on January 16th, Wuornos confessed confessed to the murders. And I 512% believe that Aileen Wuornos only confessed to these murders because Tyra asked her to.
Yeah.
She did it to protect Tyra. She did it to protect the woman that she loved. And to me, like, just... okay, just... all right. I have a lot of feelings, okay?
Yeah, it's sweet in a weird way, in a weird...
It's romantic.
Way.
It's romantic.
A little bit.
She didn't have to confess. And she told him that the men had tried to rape her and that she had killed him in self-defense. Personally, I don't believe that's 100% correct. I think that maybe that's how it started with Richard Mallory. And then I think out of desperation and out of feeling of empowerment, out of feeling of, survival for, I need this money, I think she started just doing it. But so a year later, in 1992, she went on trial for Richard Mallory, although previous convictions are normally inadmissible in criminal trials under Florida's Williams rule. Which is based on Williams v. Florida. Relevant evidence of collateral crimes is admissible at jury trial when it does not go to prove the bad character or criminal propensity of the defendant, but is used to show motive, intent, or a pattern of behavior. So they used Williams' rule to show an illegal activity pattern. She was found guilty on January 27th of 1992 and was subsequently sentenced to death 4 days later.
Oh, wow. That's fast. That's like real fast, right? Like for a trial to like...
Yes.
Because normally like people are sitting around for like months waiting to get tried for stuff and sentenced. And
Tyra testified in the court, by the way, in the trial.
Oh, so she had to watch her girlfriend testify against her.
Yeah. The woman she loved testified against her in court. Yeah.
That's awful.
And she forgave her.
Oh.
And said that she still loved her even to her dying day. She said she loved her.
Oh.
I know. I'm telling you, Aileen Wuornos was not a terrible person, okay?
Yeah, bad circumstances and bad actions, but like, oh.
So at her sentencing, psychiatrists for the defense testified that Wuornos was mentally unstable and had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and honestly, I think she was schizophrenic. My personal opinion.
Was she never evaluated for that, or like they just didn't say anything about it? I don't
even know that she was. Like, I know that these psychiatrists testified for the defense, but I don't know that she necessarily had a good defense attorney. I don't know the extent to which she was evaluated. I don't know that they had very much time to evaluate her. I don't know that they had all of the material to properly evaluate her. Wuornos petitioned the Supreme Court to allow her to fire her legal counsel and just stop the appeals process.
So she just accepted the death penalty.
Yeah, she pleaded no contest to the murders of Humphrey, Gress, and Spears. And she said that she wanted to, quote, get right with God. And in her statement to the court, she said, I want to confess to you that Richard Mallory did violently rape me, as I've told you. These others did not. They only began to start to. And then in 1992, she was given 3 more death sentences. To make sure she was really, really going to die.
That's overkill.
And then in June, so 1 month later, she pleaded guilty to the murder of Karsgaden and received her 5th death sentence in November of 92. So that's 5 death sentences. Okay. So when she fired her legal counsel to stop the appeals process, her reasoning was, I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too. There's no chance in keeping me alive or anything, I'd kill again. I have hate crawling through my system. I am so sick of hearing this she's crazy stuff. I've been evaluated so many times. I'm competent, sane, and I'm trying to tell the truth. I'm one who seriously hates human life and would kill again.
Oh, like, that thing where they're like, you can't say bomb on an air.
Yeah.
You cannot say I will kill again at a trial. Like,
this was when they asked her why she pled guilty. She had already opted out of the trial at this point. This was her reasoning for why. She was totally fine with being put to death.
Maybe
the only thing she wanted was to get right with God first.
Yeah, I mean, that's really admirable. I totally.
So this resulted in the governor instructing 3 psychiatrists to evaluate Wuornos to ensure she was competent to make that decision, and they all concluded she was mentally fit and understood that she was going to die by execution. Which I agree that she knew she was going to die. Whether or not she was mentally fit to make the decision that she should die is like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, I mean,
she was completely undiagnosed, completely unmedicated. Like, she had not had any. They didn't even give her a fucking chance. Okay, Lobo. Like, no counseling, nothing. They just were like, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, like, she had a lot of like problems.
So while waiting for her, and just I have to expand on this just so you understand the extent to which her mental state was at. Okay, while waiting for her execution date, Wuornos started making wild accusations, including that a prison matron had been abusing her. She claimed her food was tainted with spit, dirt, and urine. She said that she had overheard conversations where they were planning to push her over the brink so she would commit suicide. She also said that they were, quote, wishing to rape me before execution. She started to complain that the handcuffs were too tight and left bruises, that there were strip searches, there was a frequency of window checks. She talked about mildew, low water pressure in the showers. And she also said in an interview that I watched that they were trying to torture her by increasing the air pressure to hurt her head through the speakers.
Yeah, that's a paranoid schizophrenic right there.
I'm telling you. You. She was an untreated, unmedicated, completely no therapy. She had nothing.
Yeah, she had
I'm convinced her evaluations were not satisfactory and that she was not competent to be understanding the things that were going on because she was not understanding reality. Yeah,
that's... They shouldn't have. They should probably have evaluated again or put.
I mean, I just this last part here for you, just to really nail it home. Okay, she had KFC for her last meal, taken to the death chamber on October 9th of 2002, and her last words were, "Yes, I would just like to say that I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back. I'll be back."
Oh,
she was pronounced deceased at 9:47 a.m. She was cremated, and her ashes were given to her old friend Don Botkins, who spread them underneath a tree in Michigan. I believe Don was a regular at the Last Resort Bar. And she had requested a song by Natalie Merchant called Carnival to be played at her funeral. She was the 10th woman executed in America since 1976, and the second woman ever executed in the state of
Jesus.
Assessed using the psychopathy checklist, Wuornos scored a 32 out of 40. The checklist evaluates the 20-item list of antisocial and interpersonal behaviors, which we've gone over every episode of this podcast. Maximum score of 40. Depending on location and research perspective, scores above 25 or 30 are consistent with a diagnosis of psychopathy. So Wuornos told several inconsistencies. I guess she had in total 6 death sentences.
6 death sentences is so excessive.
Weirdly, no charges were brought against her for the murder scenes. Yeah, when you look at all the male serial killers out there who were not even given like 1 death sentence, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like men who literally killed their girlfriend and have since been released on bail.
I think probably because it was a woman.
I'm sure it shocked the hell out of them. They were like, oh my god, a woman committing murders. killing men who just want to rape prostitutes. My goodness, my word.
Exactly.
Sure, that's my...
But like they had probably like British, up to that point not seen it. So especially like in Florida in the 90s, like I could definitely see that being the reason why. Because like you said, like with other murderers, like sometimes they just like rot in jail. Sometimes they're just like...
Well, actually, that brings me to another point that I wanted to make. So Wuornos told several inconsistent stories about the killings, which is why a lot of people are like, oh, she's lying. She claimed initially that all 7 men had raped her or tried to rape her or began to rape her while she was working as a sex worker, then later recanted the claim of self-defense, citing robbery and a desire to leave no witnesses as the But during an interview with that guy I was telling you about, the filmmaker Nick Broomfield, when she thought the cameras were off, she told him that actually it was self-defense, but she couldn't stand on being on death row because she'd been there for 10 years at that point. She just wanted to die.
Yeah.
So she stopped telling the truth, and she was just like, oh yeah, kill him in cold blood, whatever. And I'd kill again too. So I really think
like maybe she wanted that.
I think she just wanted to go. I think she was just done. And I think that ultimately she realized that everything with Tyra, like the love of her life, could never be the same again. And that she was never going to get out of this. Nothing would change.
Yeah.
She just... In the weeks before her execution, she gave a series of interviews to this guy who fucking off. I just hate this dude. She talks about, quote, being taken away to meet God and Jesus and the angels and whatever is beyond the beyond. And in her final view, she once again charged that her mind was tortured and that her head was crushed by sonic pressure, and that her food was being poisoned. And that they were doing this to her with the goal of making her appear insane or to drive her insane or to drive her to suicide. And she also turned on her interviewer saying, "You sabotaged my ass. Society and the cops and the system. A raped woman got executed and was used for books and movies and shit." And then her final on-camera words were, "Thanks a lot, society, for railroading my ass." In exactly that tone of voice.
Oh, wow.
There are so many reasons why I love her, and this is one of them. She's just so real.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's 100% fucking true. You know, Charlize Theron got an award for playing her in Monster, and it still wasn't a sympathetic role. And I really, for the record, it's not my favorite. I do love Charlize Theron, I do, but it's not my favorite portrayal of her. I actually really, really enjoyed the actor portrayal of her in American Horror Story Hotel, where she came for the serial killer bash.
I haven't seen that season of it.
It's the only season I've actually watched because I'm obsessed with Lady Gaga, but that's for another time. But for me, I think that, oh, you know what? This source here says that she declined her last meal and opted for a cup of coffee instead. But according to, that's apparently from the Clark County prosecuting attorney. But according to my serial killer encyclopedia here, they said that she had KFC for her last meal. Oh.
Maybe she didn't eat it, or maybe they just like, she also could have changed her mind, like, been like, no, I don't want anything. Okay, yeah, I do. You never know.
So Merchant commented on why she asked, or why she permitted Carnival to be played during the credits of the documentary Aileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer. Natalie Merchant gave permission for them to use the song that they played at her funeral to be in the end credits of the documentary.
Oh, wow.
And she said, when director Nick Broomfield sent a working edit of the film, I was so disturbed by the subject matter that I couldn't watch it. Aileen Wuornos led a torturing life that is beyond my worst nightmares. It wasn't until I was told that Aileen spent many hours listening to my album Tiger Lily on death row and requested Carnival be played at her funeral that I gave permission for the use of the song. It's very odd to think of the places my music can go once it's in my hands. If it gave her some solace, I have to be.
Aw, that's nice. It's really sad though, damn.
Yeah, the whole story is so sad, and I have a hard time because I feel like everyone is all like, oh, she's a serial. You shouldn't sympathize with her, but I do. I sympathize with her so much, and I just think that she was just so angry and so scared, and I just...
That's like legitimately sad. Like a lot of these are like, you're happy when the person gets caught, or like you're happy when they go, or like there's
you feel a sense of relief. You feel a sense of safety when you find out that they
really
were put to death. But I don't feel that way about her at all.
It's just sad. It's just like a very sad situation that this person didn't have to be put in. You know, like if certain things had not happened to her in her life, then she probably would not have done anything. Like,
and you know, Nick Broomfield later made a statement about her motive and state of mind. A lot of it I just don't really want to talk about, but he was saying that she had a lot of awful encounters on the roads, and that he said, I think this anger just spilled out from inside her and finally exploded into incredible violence, and that was her way of surviving. I think Aileen really believed that she had killed in self-defense. I think someone who's deeply psychotic can't really tell the difference between something that is life-threatening and that is a minor disagreement, that you could say something she didn't agree with and she would get into a screaming black temper about it. And I think that's what had caused these things to happen. And at the same time, when she wasn't in those extreme moods, there was an incredible humanity to her.
I mean, that's a legitimate thing. Like when you have post-traumatic stress disorder
and paranoid schizophrenia.
Yeah, probably the combination is terrible.
Gonna fucking attack you. But also, there's a very large percentage statistical probability that they were gonna fucking attack her.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real thing too. Like when you think about it, like she was working on the highway, like being picked up by truckers and whatnot. That is like any of them could have killed her and disposed of her body, you know? So like she probably went into every situation.
Any of them could have been a serial killer, you know?
Exactly.
And that would have been the more likely story.
Yeah. So
leaving a trail of hitchhiking prostitutes in his wake, you know? That would have been the more likely story statistically to have happened, the more common story. And I bet you they wouldn't that guy's 6 consecutive death penalties.
Yeah. But I mean, her situation could have been avoided. It seems like it's like legitimately sad. Like I feel no like relief from her meeting, you know, the death penalty over what she did. Like that's not really, it's mainly just sad, kind of a bummer. But
yeah,
I could see why you like her though. Like that's a really interesting story. I didn't know half of that stuff. Like I had just seen the movie and like I've read some stuff here and there, but the main
fact
thing
that she was aware enough of the fact that they were making movies and documentary books and shit, and that they were profiting off of her.
Well, I mean, it's a rule like in the United States, if you're incarcerated, you can't make money off of like your story and whatnot.
Although Paul Bernardo wrote a book. It was it was a bestseller before Amazon had to take it down.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you're not legally allowed to profit from it, but like people try. Like Charles Manson releases music and stuff allegedly, like still, or like
didn't he die?
Did he? I don't know. When he was alive, he was like releasing music and so.
Oh man. This is Charles Manson with the Manson Family Trap remix. Only
if he was alive now. Yeah, like I could see that.
All right, dude.
But yeah.
Well, Aileen Wuornos, it was nice to meet you.
It was legitimately nice to meet her. Like I feel like that's like a really good like.
Her story touches my heart.
Yeah,
and I feel a kinship with her. And I feel genuinely grateful to her for taking out a convicted fucking rapist.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely points in her favor. But yeah, like it's just sad. And her true love like flipped on her. Like, and then she had to watch testify. Like, that's fucked up. Ugh.
The fact that she forgave Tyra.
Yeah,
the fact that she said until she died that she loved her.
Oh, that's awful. Like, ugh. Oh. But yeah, so yeah, this has been a special birthday double serial killer edition of Nice to Meet You. Yeah, double feature. And we will be back with your regularly scheduled dose of random serial killers you have not heard of next time. But until then, do we have a ending catchphrase for tonight?
We don't, but stay safe out there, guys. Don't pick up hitchhikers ever for any circumstance.
Just keep driving. Call the cops and keep driving.
Yeah. And I guess our safety tip of the day would be
don't pick up hitchhikers.
Yeah, I guess
don't shove needles in your gooch. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh no.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
What? Where?